One of the big stories of the day and the week and the months potentially to come still is Hunter Biden's laptop. And we bring in now Miranda Devine, New York Post writer, author of Laptop from Hell, Hunter Biden, Big Tech, and the Dirty Secrets the President Tried to Hide. Miranda, our audience already had seen enough to believe that the laptop was authentic. Did you take any, thanks for joining us, by the way, did you take any validation in the New York Times after 17 or 18 months finally acknowledging that the laptop was real, buried down in their article about Hunter Biden paying off his $1 million tax bill? Or were you just still angry that we're even in the position where the New York Times is allowed to validate anything?
Well, look, it's no vindication, I have to say, for anyone at the New York Post, for your listeners, for my readers. Everybody knew that this was a legitimate laptop. We would never have published those emails back 3 weeks before the 2020 election if we hadn't done our due diligence. So this is only news to the readers of the New York Times and I guess CNN viewers and MSNBC viewers and that half of the population that chooses to read and view left-wing organs. But, I feel sorry for New York Times readers that they were kept in the dark for all this time. I guess it's a bit of a shock now for them. And, I guess they're scrambling to try and figure out what's going on. They were told that the laptop was Russian disinformation. Joe Biden told them that. Joe Biden told all of us during the election campaign that he knew nothing about Hunter Biden's business dealings. He had never met any of his overseas business partners, and that was all a lie.
Miranda, it's Buck. I want to know, it's important that everyone understand it's not that there's some new reporting that's come to light from the New York Times and others. They were just telling us what you and others had known for a long time, which is that this was true and real. What do you think, though, there was such a concerted suppression campaign here from the very heights of Democrat-aligned journalism? What was the part of the story when it comes to Hunter Biden that was the most damaging or that they were the most worried about? Because there's the personal stuff, Hunter and the photos and the drug addict and being a mess. Then there's all that Ukraine and Burisma and China raising funds and 10% for the big guy. What was the part of it that they were the most worried about?
Well, look, they don't care about the Hunter Biden personal depravity and peccadillos at all. In fact, they're encouraging people to talk about that. Hunter wrote his memoir, Beautiful Things, all about his crack habit. So, and Joe Biden talked about his son's drug addiction. That's what they want you to focus on. And then they can say he's a private individual. We didn't vote for Hunter Biden to be president. That is just a distraction mechanism because the laptop and Tony Bobulinski's corroborating material and testimony is not about Hunter Biden. It is essentially about Joe Biden. Joe Biden was orchestrating, abusing his power as vice president for 8 years to enrich his family and himself, to get tens of millions of dollars from countries like China and Russia and Ukraine, just to name a few that are in the news at the moment for obvious reasons and that are, our most serious adversaries. And this puts the president of the United States in a compromising position. And the fact that he has not told the truth about it, the fact that people like Adam Schiff, Democrats and their media allies and big tech allies have gone to such lengths to cover up the story, to traduce the reporting, to call us agents of the Kremlin, anybody who tries to talk about this truth, this very important issue of national security, is just dismissed as a right-wing nutjob peddling Russian disinformation. And chief among those critics were the 51, I call them the dirty 51. These are the former high-ranking intelligence officials, such as former CIA director under Barack Obama, John Brennan, James Clapper, Leon Panetta, Michael Hayden, you name them. They all came out with that letter before the 2020 election, just 5 days after our story ran, claiming that it was all Russian disinformation. Of course, they had weasel words in there, which they're trying to use now to say, oh, no, that's not really what they said. No, that is exactly what they wanted everybody to get the impression to take away, and it is exactly what Joe Biden did when he stood up at the debate against Donald Trump a couple of days after that letter came out and declared that it was a Russian plant, the laptop was a Russian plant, that our story was a bunch of garbage, so said these really esteemed intelligence people.
Miranda, we had an interesting discussion to start the show about why now. Why is the New York Times, after basically buying into the lie that this was Russian disinformation and not covering it, why are they now, even though they buried it, I'm still old school, Miranda, and read the actual physical newspaper.
Yeah.
They buried it like 20 pages back into the physical front section of the newspaper. Why do you think the story came out now?
Well, two reasons. One is, there still are some legitimate journalists at the New York Times, believe it or not, and there were people there who had talked to Tony Bobulinski last year. They knew the laptop was real, and I think there must have been some sort of internal friction. But the reason for this particular story was not to backtrack on their previous rejection of the laptop. Their admission that the laptop was real came in paragraph 24. The real story was basically rehearsing a defense for Hunter Biden of these upcoming expected indictments from the U.S. attorney in Delaware. And he's been investigated, since at least 2018. The New York Times says it was previous to that. But we know since 2018 he's been investigated for alleged tax evasion, money laundering, and violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. These are serious criminal charges if they were to be brought. And Trump world was fully destroyed, really, by the Farah allegations. Paul Manafort spent time in jail. And there are, others in the Trump orbit who've had these issues. So that was a never used or very little used law before. Now it's become a big deal since the Trump era, and it would be just very ironic if it ended up being used against Hunter Biden. So they're obviously sweating. We haven't seen much of Hunter Biden in recent weeks, and the grand jury there in Delaware has been, subpoenaing his bank records. They've had his baby mama went and testified to them for several hours last week. London Roberts, the Arkansas former stripper who was the mother of his now 4-year-old daughter that she had to go to court to prove paternity of. And her lawyer has handed over a whole cache of documents, financial documents, to the grand jury. So, reading between the lines of the New York Times, it seems that the grand jury has actually been using at least some emails that were on the laptop, if not the entire laptop. And we know the FBI has had the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, since December 2019, when John Paul MacIsaac, the owner of that MacBook repair shop, handed it over to them. So, and that's only one of 3 laptops that we know of that Hunter's lost.
Miranda, Buck and I were discussing in the first hour, and I'm glad you went through that issue. We also have the Durham probe going on. I think that Hunter is going to get indicted for some charges. Buck took the other side. We have a stake bet on it. If you had to project, do you like my argument that he will be indicted for some charges or Buck's argument that he will not? Which side do you think is more likely?
Look, I think he probably will be for 2 reasons. One is that London Roberts' lawyer is certain that he will be. And another is because in this sort of rehearsal of his defense through the New York Times, I've talked to seasoned tax lawyers about this, and they say these are not excuses. I mean, saying that you paid $1 million worth of overdue tax after an investigation has started does not, get you out of the trouble. And similarly, retroactively applying for foreign registration, I don't know why he would be allowed to do that and others wouldn't be allowed to do that. So And, there's ample evidence on the laptop. Also, the Chuck Grassley, Ron Johnson Senate investigation where they have the money trail. I mean, documents that I wouldn't have been able to access, but this is from the Treasury Department, these suspicious activity reports that banks have to file. There were a lot of those to do with all the money that was coming in, tens of millions of dollars coming in to bank accounts associated with Hunter Biden, his uncle Jim Biden, Joe's younger brother, and their partners. And, I mean, the crucial thing to remember also is that Joe Biden can't pretend that he knows nothing about his family, this influence peddling scheme, because he lied about meeting Hunter's business partners. He met several of them. He met Chinese business partners. He met Russians. He met Kazakhstanis. He met Mexicans. He met them in Beijing. He met them in Washington, D.C. He invited them to his own home. He brought them onto Air Force Two. So he is intimately involved. And not only that, there is evidence on the laptop, not a lot, but there is some evidence on the laptop that he financially benefited from Hunter's business dealings overseas, and that is both, commingled bank finances, shared debit cards, shared bank accounts, and also Hunter was paying some of Joe's household bills for, maintenance and upkeep on one of his Delaware mansions, an AT&T phone bill every month. So, that shows that Hunter Biden also, when he complained bitterly to family members that he had to give so much money to support the rest of the family. And at one point he said, I have to give half my salary to Pop, which is Joe Biden. So there's a lot of evidence there. And, you wonder if Joe Biden paid tax on that money that he received.
Miranda Devine, author of Laptop from Hell and editorialist over at the New York Post. Miranda, thanks so much.
Pleasure. Great to talk to you both.
Buck, are you getting nervous?
Not at all, man.
Be honest.
Not
She
at all.
took my side
Not
there.
I
This
know,
gonna be a
but
great
she
steak.
is looking at it, in my opinion, from the perspective of what should happen based on the evidence in a country where the evidence makes prosecutorial decisions. I'm looking at this through the prism of he is the sitting president's son. The Democrats run the legal apparatus like they do the media in many ways. And David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney for Delaware, does he want to see his life destroyed? Does he want to see? That's how the Democrats play. They're like a mafia family. That's how they play. They play rough. And I just think that it'll end up, Clay, will he pay a fine and maybe an admission? But no, a criminal indictment, that's it. I mean, that's the real, is he criminally indicted with something that would seek to send him to prison? No way. No way.
That
no one will
steak
do
is
it.
going to
They won't
melt
do
on
it.
my tongue like butter.
Oh, man.
Buck, just be nervous.
We'll see, buddy. I'm telling you, do we have to put an end date on this one, too? Like, when do we, end of this year? We have to have like a statute of limitations on the bet here.
I think it's only 1 year because my thought is that they will not necessarily want to bring the charges right before the midterm because then it seems politically motivated, even though Biden's not on the ticket himself. And so I think they'll either have to do it soon, meaning, in the next month or two, or they'll do it next year after the midterms have already happened.
It would be a bold move to indict the sitting president's son. But let me ask you this. We don't have to bet on this. Does Joe Biden pardon him right away?
Well, he'll pardon him if he's not running for re-election. I don't think he would do it right away because I think the positive would be if you're Biden, Hunter Biden, these kind of things take years. And I don't think Joe Biden's going to run increasingly in 2024. So I think on his way out the door, yes, he could pardon his son.
It would be amazing. Almost everybody would have gotten away with Russia collusion and all the lies and all those machinations. And then the guy that gets caught would be, not for that, but for something else from the Democrat camp, would be Hunter Biden.
Well, I mean, the wild thing is everything that the Democrats have been alleging against Trump in their fevered dreams, Biden's family did it. That's the crazy thing. And they're not even willing to cover it, even though it's happening right in front of their faces.
A fine would be a push? Is that what you call it, by the way? If he just pays a fine, that
the
doesn't
charges.
count.
He doesn't have to be convicted if the charges come down. I don't think he would
criminal
pay the fine.
charges, not civil charges.
Yeah,
All right.
criminal
All
charges.
right, fine.
Criminal charges, yeah. It's going to be great. It's going to melt like butter. He's going to get charged. We're joined now by Seth Dillon, who is with the Babylon Bee. He does fantastic work there. And right now, the Babylon Bee is locked out of its Twitter account over I believe it was a joke surrounding the HHS commissioner of some level in the Biden administration that may have also involved Leah Thomas. I'm not sure exactly. Let's bring in Seth and find out what the latest is there. Seth, what was the joke? What was the headline? You guys do fantastic work. And what is Twitter doing? Kind of fill in our audience.
Great questions. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us.
So, yeah, Rachel Levine was named one of the Women of the Year by USA Today. And
yes.
We did like a satirical take on that, where we actually selected Rachel Levine as our pick for Man of the Year. And Twitter didn't like that very much. So that ran afoul of their hateful conduct policy, where we misgendered somebody and targeted an individual for misgendering. So they flagged that post and told us that we can only unlock our account if we delete that post. And basically what they're saying is, we go through this form, we have to fill out this form and acknowledge that we did in fact violate the hateful conduct policy and take down the tweet. Otherwise, our account remains locked.
And Seth, what is your position on this right now? I mean, a lot of people I know in the past have just said, "Oh, fine, I'll delete the offending tweet." Are you taking a hard line one way or the other on this?
Well, we feel kind of obligated to. I mean, there's a situation here where we have to make a choice. We have to choose between like keeping this platform and the audience that we're connected to through this platform, or standing by our principles. And this is a situation where they want us to basically affirm something that we don't affirm, or deny something that we want to affirm, that a man is a man. And so, in order to do that, to delete the tweet ourselves, Twitter, this is the thing. Twitter could delete this tweet if they want to, because they don't want it on their platform. Why are they making us do it? This is about submission. It's about ideological conformity. It's about forcing us, compelling us to go along with their definitions and their understanding of reality. And we disagree with that. And so, there's kind of like this, how could we in good conscience delete this thing? We had an internal discussion and decided we couldn't.
Seth, I'm also curious, does a human being from Twitter engage with you on any of this? Is there like a rep you can call or someone you can talk to try to appeal this? Or is it all just kind of form email and messages saying this is the deal?
Well, initially, when they notify you of these things, it's an automated email that goes out. Whether a human actually reviewed this before that email was triggered or not, I have no idea. We haven't been contacted by Twitter yet. Up to this point, there's now a lot of media attention on this, as you're aware. So we were trending throughout most of the day this morning on Twitter. So we may yet get contacted by them. We're seeking out contacts over there to talk to somebody over there. But they do have an appeal process that we can try to go through, which we'll pursue. We just, we don't hold out high hopes for that to work out in our favor.
Seth, I ran a media company, as you know, at Outkick for a while, and I know how valuable referral traffic can be from social media accounts. So whenever these companies, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whoever it might be, takes action against individual content providers like the Babylon Bee or Outkick, that has a significant impact in terms of the revenue and site traffic that can be generated. What does Twitter shutting down effectively the Babylon Bee's account do to your ability to monetize your content?
Man, it's huge. I mean, it's hard to overstate it. Twitter is not our top traffic referrer, but it's one of them. We've long since we've driven more traffic through Facebook than we do through Twitter. It's just more geared towards that. People tend to stay on Twitter more and retweet things than link and then click through to the links that you've posted there. But it's you're part of the conversation when you're on Twitter. This is where public discourse happens. This is where all the people who will never migrate to Parler and Getter and these alternative platforms, Gab and the like, they're staying on Twitter. That's where the conversation is. It's where a lot of the government officials are. Probably all of the government officials at this point are on Twitter. And so it's public discourse is taking place there. When you are removed from that, you're ostracized and you're removed from the discussions that matter. So it is very costly, even beyond just traffic. It's costly in terms of, like we have, for example, Elon Musk is a fan of ours and he engages with our content regularly. He's not on the alternative platforms. He's on Twitter. And so if we're not on Twitter anymore, we are no longer being engaged with and in front of prominent people with large followings. So the damage that it does, not just to our traffic itself, but just, our brand and being relevant. It's huge, big cost.
So how I first of all admire you for standing on principle, because I think you're right here, and Twitter does need to be held accountable for its arbitrary and capricious rules as it applies them.
Yeah.
How long are you prepared to continue this battle? We talk with Alex Berenson all the time. Twitter kicked him off. You aren't officially kicked off, certainly, but if you don't delete this tweet, it's a de facto kicking off, right, of your brand. How long could this go on from your perspective?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we feel pretty committed to not deleting the tweet. So we're kind of at this impasse. We're just staring each other down right now. Let's see how Twitter responds. We'll see how the appeal goes. Of course, we're bringing a lot of media spotlight to this. I'll be on Tucker Carlson later tonight talking about it. What the thing that's important to us is that we generate enough support from our readers. We have lots of loyal readers. We have a large email list. We're appealing to them to subscribe and support us because this could be a long fight. This could draw out for years. I don't know when we'll be. There may come a time where the law changes or where the Supreme Court weighs in on this, and Twitter's compelled to allow us back on the platform. I don't know. But I'm not calling for any kind of government regulatory scheme or anything. I'm just saying it could go on for a long time. So we do need support from our readers to carry us through.
Yeah, Seth, we wanted to ask about that exactly because, look, I make no secret of this. I think you guys do hilarious work on a regular basis. You guys do great stuff over at the Babylon Bee that is really helpful. As conservative commentators, I feel like there's so little comedy out there. So when we find people who do it well and do real comedy, real parody, real satire, we want to support it. And you guys at the Bee, certainly, guys and gals, certainly do that. Where can folks go and how can people make sure they see some of the brilliant stuff you're putting out there, even if, let's say, Twitter holds firm?
Well, I think the best way, look, none of these social platforms really allow you to own your audience. You don't have an actual relationship with them where you take them with you wherever you go. I would say the best thing to do is get on our email list. If you're not able to be a paid subscriber, the next best thing is to get on the email list, and then we have direct communication with you outside of the algorithms and the big tech censors who are trying to limit what you can see and what you can say. So I would encourage everyone to do that. You can join on our website or even on our Twitter page, which is still up. It's not been taken down. We just can't tweet there. We have a link to sign up for our newsletter right there at the top of the page.
Seth, here at I would request, because I'm going to help you guys as best I can. When you know that you guys have a lot of great stories and headlines, when you know you have one that I would love that I might not otherwise see, text it to me and I will share it with my audience to help continue to spread the word of your brand, because I know how incredibly frustrating it is when that fire hose effect that you get from your social media accounts, they suddenly turn it off because of something that you've said that they disagree with. It happened all the time to us at Outkick, and it happens to a lot of people out there who are fighting the good fight on a day-to-day basis.
I bet. I appreciate that offer. I will take you up on that. We do need more sports writers who can do comedy from the perspective of looking at and satirizing and doing parody of the sports world. But yeah, I'll take you up on that, and I appreciate your support. We really need it.
Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee, making great jokes and fighting the good fight for free speech. Thanks so much, Seth. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ketanji Brown Jackson, you are there right now watching this hearing. Mm-hmm. Compare and contrast it with the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, please.
Oh, my goodness. It was a totally different world for many reasons. First of all, the general public, is not allowed in the Capitol right now and into these hearings. That makes an enormous difference.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they were allowed in, some of them would come with things, hidden under their shirts or their hats. They would jump up and have posters and they would yell. You guys, if you remember from the very opening statement by then Chairman Grassley, he was interrupted numerous times and we thought, oh my goodness, this is not going to be a normal confirmation hearing. And it was very jarring in the beginning because it happened so consistently, and the Capitol Police, bless their hearts, these are fantastic men and women, they were just taking out protester after protester after protester. It was just a constant stream, to the point where about the third day, they were yelling and jumping up and no one even flinched. It had gotten so ridiculous that people just kept talking. This is a totally different situation here. It is much more calm and respectful, and I think a lot of that is because the public's not allowed in.
Is there any drama at all about whether or not she's going to be confirmed in your mind?
I don't think so, simply because the Democrats have the votes if they all stick together, and I imagine they will, and probably get a couple Republicans too. So we're looking at this through the lens of, the GOP trying to score points for the midterm. I think a lot of it is about that, this argument that Judge Jackson is soft on crime, or that she's going to be really progressive. I think it's more about kind of trying to paint the Democrats with a certain philosophy and a far left philosophy, more than it is about the actual vote on her.
Shannon, it's Buck. I got to say, I think that one of the big differences between what their goal was with Kavanaugh versus what any kind of goal would be here was that the Democrats believed that if they could scuttle the Kavanaugh nomination, they would get a more moderate, which would mean more Democrat-leaning in decisions, justice to replace him, right? That effectively the GOP would have been scared. Mm-hmm. Trump would have said, fine, we'll give you Merrick Garland or somebody like that instead. At least that was their plan. Is it fair to say that if it wasn't Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I've said I think she'll get 4 or 5 GOP votes in addition to all the Democrat votes, but if it wasn't her, it would be somebody who has a similar judicial philosophy, right? I mean, there's no chance that the Senate Democrats and the Judiciary Committee, there's no chance that Biden rather would put someone forward who wouldn't be along the lines of a leftist and an activist on the court. Am I misreading this?
Well, yeah, listen, he's definitely going to choose as a president somebody that he feels would rule in the way and share the philosophy that he has about the law and interpreting the law and interpreting the Constitution and statutes and the text and all that kind of thing. But I got to tell you that there is some reaction from the far left that's not thrilled about what they're hearing from her answers today, because she's saying things like, here's what I do. I try to be neutral. I go read the text and I go back and look to the original people who wrote the text. What did they mean at the time they wrote it? That doesn't sound like a super far left progressive, situation where I'm going to the Constitution is living and breathing. I'm going to interpret it. She specifically said I would not interpret statutes of the Constitution based on my own personal policy preferences or the policy preferences of the day. So she's saying all the things that you would need to say to get Republican votes. But there's some on the left feeling like, wait a minute, we wish President Biden had actually gone further left. She sounds a little bit too mainstream and reasonable compared to what we thought we were going to get.
Shannon, she said, or that she was asked during questioning about saying that George Bush, W. Bush, I believe, was a war criminal, and said, I didn't intend to offend him. Did that register any significant impact in your mind?
I was actually out of the room when that happened, but as the hearing just restarted with Senator Dick Durbin, who's the Democrat who runs the chairman of the committee, he was bringing in some material saying that he wanted the context to what she had said. So I think that you're probably going to hear more about that this afternoon, and she's going to want to, after that quick break, she's going to want to readdress that, I think, and give people a more definitive answer on that.
Outstanding stuff as always, Shannon. We appreciate you making time. Know you got to watch all that hearing, and we look forward to watching you on Fox News as well.
Can I ask a question? I want to know how Buck's bracket is doing.
Oh, that is a fantastic question. Who did you pick, by the way, Shannon? Liberty wasn't in it, so you guys had the fantastic uniform reveal.
I know, the best uniform reveal ever.
Yes.
And listen, Sheldon will tell you, my husband, that when I have to make a decision about sports, a lot of times I go to the, quote, costumes.
Yes.
And I decide based on what they're wearing.
Shannon, I'll just tell you this. Mr. Fancy Sports Know-It-All Man Travis's top pick is already out.
Yes.
And my own Villanova, what's the mascot, Clay?
Wildcats.
Thank you. My own Villanova Wildcats that I love so much are still in it, Shannon. So there you go.
Good.
He may end up beating me. Shannon. So it's a mess. By the way, I'll text you the answer on this cost for Disney overnight stay, but I'll tell everybody else when we come back.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
All right,
thanks so much, Shannon.
That is Shannon Bream, does fantastic work as the Ketanji Brown Jackson continues with the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing.
We now have Stephen Moore with us, former economic advisor to President Trump, co-founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, and a senior economist at FreedomWorks. Stephen, I know we only got you for a few minutes today, so I just want to hand the floor to you here by asking you, what's going wrong with this economy, and what should Biden and the people around him be doing to stop messing it up so much?
So, great question. First of all, I mean, the worry right now is everyone knows we have inflation, right? I mean, everybody feels it every day, so I don't have to dwell on that. The inflation is getting a little bit worse, not better. So we're at somewhere between 8, 9, or 10% inflation, depending on what gauge you want to use. Those are terrible numbers. Those are the kind of numbers, Buck, that we saw back when, remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember it. I'm old enough to remember the 70s when Jimmy Carter was president, and it just was a snowball that just kept rolling down the hill and getting bigger and bigger until Ronald Reagan came to the rescue. So the problem that I see right now, look, inflation's a big, big problem. But what happens if this inflation crashes the economy? And there are more and more economists who I respect who are really worried about that, and I am too. This story of raging inflation almost never has a happy ending. And so then you get that dreaded S word, Buck, which is, of course, stagflation. Now, you know what stagflation is, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. It's, for those who don't know, stagflation is the combination of stagnation, which is no growth, and high inflation. And, we're seeing some signs of that. So far this in the first 2.5 months of this year, the economy is growing at about 1%. That's just barely keeping your head above water.
And so, this is Clay, by the way. Thanks for coming on with us. What is going to happen? So it appears that there's going to be almost no ability to pass any kind of significant legislation for the rest of this year.
Well,
and then obviously we go, we hope. Yeah, I know. That's good news. Right. So we go into...
Almost everything that Biden has passed is what's created this inflation.
Yes.
See, and I think most Americans can connect these dots, right? When you have multi-trillions of dollars of spending bills, and then you're just borrowing to pay for it, and then you're printing money to pay for it, isn't it pretty self-evident that's going to cause inflation?
Well, I mean, thankfully, Joe Manchin was one of the few Democrats who actually said this is not ideal.
Right.
And managed to not pass the multi-trillion-dollar additional bill.
Can you imagine if they had passed that $5 trillion spending bill? I mean,
yeah, it's crazy to even think about.
Inflation.
So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is,
by the way, there was a news report this morning that came across the wire, and I don't know how accurate it was, but that Joe Manchin was open to some compromise on this. We don't need any more. We should be cutting government spending right now. If I were I did advise Donald Trump on the economy. He didn't need a lot of my help because he understood the economy. Joe Biden doesn't. But if I were advising him, I'd say, hey, look, get cutting. COVID is over for now. Let's cut back on all these extra expenditures, pay our bills, start balancing our budget like households do, and then I think you'd see the inflation going down. The other thing we have to do, by the way, start producing energy here at home.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's what I was going to say is we're not going to really get a lot done the rest of this year. Then we get Democrats losing the House and maybe the Senate as well, so nothing happens the next 2 years. What are we going to look like? We got to get a quick answer here, but by 2024, what are we sitting at as an economic situation?
Well, I can't see that far ahead. I can tell you the next 12 months are looking pretty dicey.
Recession, Stephen? Are we heading to a recession?
I hope not. I think we can still avoid it if we just get some sensible policies coming out of the White House. And the Fed, by the way, has to act more swiftly and with more authority to tackle this inflation problem.
Stephen Moore, everybody. Stephen, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
A recession is not in the cards. We can still avoid it. It's not too late.
Thank you, sir.
He is Donald Trump Jr., and I appreciate you taking the time with us. And I want to just let you tee off right here off the top. Hunter Biden's laptop, the New York Times has announced, is real. If you had done everything that Hunter Biden did based on what was on his laptop, do you believe that you would be in prison or facing 800 different felony charges, Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, let's say there's 50 things on the laptop. If I did one of them,
yeah,
I'd be all of those things. Meaning, if I did any one of them,
yeah,
whether it's the crack on numerous occasions, whether it's the prostitutes, whether it's the essentially laundering money for the mayor of Moscow's wife because it was tied to human trafficking and sex trafficking rings, whether our campaign just didn't come out and say, hey, this stuff's not real. The Biden administration and their campaign just said nothing. Meaning if it's not real, you come out and say it's not real. There's no truth to any of these things. They didn't have to because the media would do those things for them. The media ran a total cover scam. They knew it was real. They knew all of these things. It didn't matter. They were able to further their narrative. They pretended it didn't exist. And we know there's a significant portion of America that now know these things that said had they known, they would have never voted for it because we're on the brink of World War III, possibly, in the Ukraine and Russia. And, no one's asking the question, Clay or Buck, do you think maybe our thought process as it relates to Ukraine is influenced by the fact that they may have all sorts of extra stuff that we don't even know about yet, given that there doesn't seem to be a country in the world that is an adversary to the United States that doesn't somewhere have a Hunter Biden laptop in their possession?
And Don, it's Buck. I got to say, I get the feeling that if a shady energy company in Ukraine some years ago had approached you and been like, we want to give you somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000 a month, just because we like you so much, you would have realized when your dad was president, or at the time it would have been Vice President Biden, but nonetheless, that wouldn't look good, right? These are things that you would never get away with and would never do.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably plenty of things. I said, hey, I can't do that because the optics aren't right, even if they're perfectly legal, right? Don't forget, we had a flourishing real estate business across the world, prior to entering politics. We didn't have to stop doing those deals. You couldn't do deals with foreign governments, but even private developers, we said, hey, we're not going to do any new deals going forward. We got no credit. It's as though we were making billions from foreign governments, if you listen to the media. We didn't take a cent from it, and
Can I just say, Don, I remember when they did a piece. They did a piece in the Washington Post.
$1 billion from China.
They did a piece in the Washington Post about how the cheeseburgers that diplomats were buying in the Trump hotel were a violation of the emoluments clause. Do you remember that one?
Oh, I remember it clearly because we probably spent about 1,000x on that in legal and just trying to answer the questions that were put forward to us that we ever could have made from the stupid cheeseburger. Minor details, right? That didn't matter. When Hunter, with no experience, took $1 billion from a Chinese investment authority, basically a sovereign wealth fund, they just gave a crackhead $1 billion. I can assure you something: the Chinese government does not give $1 billion to random strangers, especially those with no investment track record, unless they're trying to buy something, which of course they were.
All right, so here's the question on the Hunter Biden situation. Buck and I have been debating it. I think that Hunter is going to get indicted and charged with at least one felony. Buck disagrees. We have a fabulous steak dinner bet on this over the next year. Which side of the bet would you like to be on? Would you rather be on my side that he'll be indicted and charged with at least one felony, or would you rather be on Buck's side that he's going to skate?
I'm with Buck 100% because I've been in the room. I've seen the way it works. It's nonsense, guys. He can get away with murder. They'll cover it up. It makes no difference. I mean, you'd think that given all the stuff going on right now, you'd want to look. Now that we know the laptop is real, you think there'd be people asking questions about what was seemingly underage children, on the laptop. No, not even a question. Now, I understand it seems to be part of the Democrat Party platform today, especially as we're watching these confirmation hearings, to take the side of pedophiles and to be an apologist for child sex offenders. I mean, I get that the Democrat, at least, the powers that be within the Democrat Party platform, I understand that seems to be their position. I don't know that that's where all Democrat voters are, but man, they seem to be going to great lengths to protect pedophiles. No questions about it. So there's zero chance in my mind that anything happened. I'll get in on this bet. I'll throw in like a weekend at Mar-a-Lago for you guys if I'm wrong.
There we go.
Oh, well, see, Buck's going to win there. You're on Buck's side. Well, by the way, we came down to Mar-a-Lago and had a fabulous time with your dad. He was great with us for the first hour of the show last month. So that was both of our first times to be there. It was incredible.
Yeah, Don, to that end, I want to know, Clay and I talk as much as we can just about how you can't be complacent right now for people that just want a sane America that functions and is not the mess that we've all look. Everyone listening to this right now misses your dad. Okay, they miss what it was like in 2019. They miss what it was like before the Biden regime took over. And I just want to know what you and what those you're working with are doing to make sure that we get just the biggest mobilization possible for this midterm and send the biggest rebuke we can in advance of the next time we get to pick a president.
Yeah, no, 100%. Listen, I'm out there fighting every day, and as a former real estate developer from New York City, that's probably not the greatest business model, but you actually got to fight for the things that you believe in. So, we're out there every day. As recently as yesterday, I launched sort of an app to get news, because we've seen how badly news is censored these days. Stories could be out there, but you'll never actually see that. People were reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, but mainstream media, social media, big tech, made sure that no one ever actually saw it. They have a monopoly on your phones, from video to social media to news. It's total monopoly. So some friends of ours, with the notion of, hey, build it yourselves, said, okay, we'll do that. We created an app called MXM News, minute by minute news, where we're actually curating the news. So it's not just what Google, what big tech wants you to see. It's a free app available for everyone else that'll give you a chance to actually see the news that's out there, so that you can get stories like the Hunter Biden laptop. So you can get stories like the Durham report, another big one, right? Where's Bob Woodward saying that this is bigger than Watergate? They were spying on the sitting president of the United States, and he's totally MIA. If Donald Trump tweeted Merry Christmas in the last 5 years, that was a story that was bigger than Watergate, according to Bob Woodward.
I remember the ice cream scoops, Don Jr. The ice cream scoops were out of control.
By the way, your app is number one right now on magazines and news as we speak. So for people out there who are interested in M&M News, you can search that out.
Yeah, MXM.
MXM.
But yes, 100%. And we're just trying to, again, if they're saying we got to create these things ourselves, I'd love to be able to say, hey, everyone gets to play fairly, but we understand we are constantly working at a deficit. We have to overcome a lot. And when you think about it, Buck, and Clay, when elections are won by basis points these days, and yet we're working against $1 trillion in mainstream media against us, $1 trillion, corporate juggernaut of big tech, multi-trillion-dollar, same thing in social media. You have multiple trillion-dollar industries actively working against anyone who is even nominally conservative, and they're still close. I think if we can get the real message out there, if we can get real stories out there, and if we can actually pressure some Republicans to grow a pair every once in a while and actually fight for the things that we believe in, there's no reason we shouldn't be a dominant force in the future of politics. I'm watching sort of the hills to die on for the left, and I'm saying, man, I don't think they're in touch with the rest of America, and they're not. But it's easy to manipulate that when you control all the information that's getting out there. And so we got to take that back.
We know that your dad is probably going to give people good news after the first of the year about running in 2024. But I'm actually curious, do you think Joe Biden will actually run? If you had to bet on whether Biden will run for re-election, do you think he'll sit out? Do you think he's got anything left? Is 82-year-old Joe Biden going to attempt it, or do you think the Democrats will have an open primary?
I imagine they end up in a primary. I mean, I don't know that he'll ever want to go away. I mean, the 50-year creature of the Senate, these guys go for re-election. I mean, he was incapable of running the last time, but he didn't have to run, right? He could sit in the basement. They did the running for him. They covered up the nonsense. They made it seem like he was this great statesman. The adults are back in the White House, guys. How's that working out for you? It seems wonderful. Inflation's through the roof. They're literally rationing gas where we are. Down here, even in Florida already, prices are through the roof with that. We're on the brink of World War III. China's flying sorties over Taiwan. That's the next one to fall. You have the disaster in Afghanistan where, our woke military, they're too busy worried about their freaking pronouns to actually maybe get American civilians out before the troops, and then they leave $86 billion worth of equipment for the Taliban. And biometric scanners to make sure that they can really root out all of the people that may have been fighting against them for the last 20 years. I mean, these are brilliant people. It's a scary thing. The only thing I'm shocked is I did not think that they would be able to destroy America so quickly. But
Good point.
This is Democrat policy. And that's, I think, the big distinction we have to make. Everyone, Joe Biden, this. No one believes that Joe Biden's capable of making actual decisions. And even if he was, I don't think that anyone looks at Joe Biden and says he really believes, this sort of new age Democrat mantra, whether it's the all of it. No one thinks that. This is Democrat policy. It's being enacted. It took our country from a thriving economy to a disaster in less than a year. And it's only going to get worse. We still have 3 more years to go of this presidency. So just remember that. You can't use Joe Biden as a scapegoat. Don't let the Democrats get away with it. This is what they want. These are their ideas. These are their policies. We need energy, so we'll get it from Iran. We'll get it from Venezuela. We'll allow Russia to broker the Iran peace talks where we're going to give Russia billions. We're going to let Iran enrich uranium and be able to make nukes. I mean, this is what they would rather do. They would rather negotiate with those people and give them billions than they would, say, the state of Texas,
Donald
Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, oil producers. It's insane.
It's like
Donald
a freight
Trump
train of
Jr.
freedom.
Fantastic as always. I'm disappointed to hear that you're going to be on the Buck side of the steak bet there. We will talk to you again soon. Hopefully you can buy me a steak next time you see me.
Look forward to it, man. Be
Thanks,
well.
Don.